Yeah, we're trying somehow. Um, hello, hello, hello for a special, kind of early 511 edition. Um, but yeah, I don't know about being early. I never consciously tried to be early. It's interesting, right? Um, so first of all, how was my day? Well, my day was spent primarily in bed, actually. It was one of those, Saturday. So, you're just trying to, kind of relax for the weekend, right? Kind of just, catch on some sleep, do some stuff. It's interesting because I suppose the question of the day I would ask is, how do you guys, like, do you guys like to sleep in on the weekend? It's interesting. Or how much sleep do you get at night? I suppose is the real question. You might ask. I tend to say, and I suppose it's interesting that I tend to say interesting a lot, and I can explain myself, or at least my conscious understanding of why I do it. I mean, I think to me, like, it's interesting because like I said, I've said before, and I don't know. I'm trying to figure out. Trying to figure out what's wrong or what's right. Right. That's another thing we can talk about. But it's interesting because you think about like how you think about how we form knowledge, right? And to me, like knowledge, especially about sort of human behavior, right, is primarily directed upon what occurs, right? Like, so what's outside the world. And I talked about this earlier. I mean, I stand by this. I don't know if you would consider that I have to have the premise and then make the deduction, or whether I find the sort of general rule on the basis of sort of gathering data, right? So statistics, I would argue, right? And I don't know. I mean, like I said, this would be open invitation to argue with me if you guys want to do that. I will. I One of the things I realize is that excuse me, if I put made for kids, it turns off the comments automatically. So I can't make debate. But this is primarily made for kids, but I guess I didn't realize kids can't comment, which I suppose makes sense. They're censored, right? So it's interesting. But yeah, but so in my opinion, right, the practice of statistics is primarily inductive, right? Like, in other words, like, we're taking samples and we're forming a general. No, we test hypothesis. That's a sort of that's probably an a deductive method, right? But it's somewhat inductive, right? Especially the actual using statistical testing, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. It's interesting, and so therefore you'd say, like, for people who like rules follow the sort of formal logic, and then statistics though is kind of the opposite, right? So if you prefer the statistical method, you're probably more inductive. I don't know. I'm just, like I said, I'm just, this is my view. It's interesting because the problem is that language. The question becomes, is language deductive or inductive, right? Well, and I would say that language for me, like, in other words, because the language is already complete, as I learn the language, it's probably deductive. Maybe not. I don't know. It's interesting because sort of like the language defines the rules, right? Like cup is cup because of something, right? Someone made this sort of, all cups are round, right? And so there's something about a cup being circular, right? And that's and I can't if I wanted to sort of call the things round, I could make up my own language, but that would require quite a lot of work, right? And as you can tell, it's Saturday, so it's just interesting because you sort of realize you're trying to figure out who you are, and I suppose the foundation of who you are has been predefined, right? You're sort of preset, right? Like the cup comes to life, right? I'm thinking of Beauty and the Beast, by the way. I don't know, maybe I'm looking at my face. I'm just kidding. But that gets me going, right? That's kind of gets me going. Anyway, so the cup, right? Wasn't there a cup in Beauty and the Beast that came to life? Now the cup can self-reflect on itself, but its meaning of its name is defined by, has been predefined, right? And so it's sort of like, wow, there is no, once again, I mean, to me, this is all about control, but I don't know. I look at it, I feel like that's my, that's my mind firing, right? My sort of boom, boom, boom. Like to me, it's like, well, I didn't choose my name. I mean, like I said, I like my name. This username is Pluto's Arc. I don't think I ever actually told you my real name. For those of you who don't know, it is Joe. It really is Joe. So yeah. So, but it's interesting because, it's just like the cup is the cup, right? The cup has certain features, but the cup was made, right? That's another thing. Like the cup was made to have its features. It has natural properties that were not touched by its creator. Here, the creator being a man, and then whatever magic beings endowed it with consciousness, or endowed it with was sentient. I don't know. Is it sentient or conscious? The point, all of this to say, you think about. To me, like I said, to me, the issue is like, how do we know? In terms of any piece of knowledge, right? It's a working of what's already known versus what maybe we can contribute, but also, it seems like these concepts, they build upon an already established foundation, and what you're doing, like for example, like most of your school is built on the idea of trying to understand these foundational approaches. So it's sort of like, for example, like, what causes baldness, right? I'm a little bald, but the question, you want to say like, what causes baldness? First of all, the very question itself, right, is going to be causally related, right? And then also, I'm reflecting, this probably has a lack of organization, and the question is sort of, well, you're lacking of organization. I'm trying to think through. Again, in other words, like I don't really these 511 thoughts. They don't necessarily have a message as much as they have me just kind of improvisationally speaking my thoughts as to what I'm trying to work through in my life. And so, but the point is that we observe baldness, and we're trying to say what causes baldness. Well, that's causal, right? That's a causal question, but it is one that is based upon the observation of a natural phenomena and trying to explain that in a fabric of other natural phenomena, right? Once again, that's sort of what we're doing. Now, the question is, what is the role of language? Like, how the question becomes like, how does language fit into this, right? The word bald itself, right, has a certain, there's an English version, presumably there's other languages that have the word bald. That has a certain connotation, and particularly a sort of connective connotation, right? So whoever created the language, or whatever society formed the language, had certain ideas as to what baldness was either related to, or when they observed it, right? And so for them, when they're calling bald, they're necessarily connecting it with other ideas related to that, to the observation of being bald, and tied to the language itself, right? Or presumably that's how sort of the evolution unfolds. Presumably, right? I mean, that's it's interesting because like it's amazing how before the 20th century they didn't even teach evolution, right? You had like the French Revolution. I mean, American Revolution. These revolutions, these Enlightenment periods. And then, before that, they didn't even teach evolution, right? So it's funny. Did they acknowledge something of a sort of evolutionary um, idea? I don't know. This is something I should look up, right? Maybe history of stats or something. It is interesting. I'm trying to grapple with all of this stuff as I do my sleeping. But yeah, that's interesting. Hope every. I guess, and now I'm thinking. I guess the conclusion is that you know you don't ask questions, you just know the answers to them. I'm just kidding. There are dumb questions. That's the ending question of the day. All right, have a good one, guys. Have a good weekend. Bye.